clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Don't forget, you can also always listen to Subway Sports Talk Friday mornings on Radio Garden State, the brand new 24/7 streaming radio station on RadioGardenState.com. Almost said it backwards there. RadioGardenState.com. Super easy to use and to listen to. Literally, RadioGardenState.com. The player's right there. Hit play, and you're rocking and rolling. You could also find it on like Alexis, with they have the little screen and things like that. And you can listen wherever you are. Find all about your New Jersey, new artists, new restaurants, places to go, people to see. Shout out my boy Mike Ham, Subway Sports Talk, Radio Garden State, Fridays at 9 a.m. Today, we're here to talk about baseball because it is awesome right now if you're a Mets fan, and the exact opposite if you are a Yankee fan. We just ended up the Subway Series, and the Mets clean sweep 4-0. Jermaine Cole, Coleslaw, Garrett Cole, I don't care. Mets in 4. Cody O, Mets in 4. Cody O'Connor is here to talk baseball with us. We also got a nice, fun USA basketball topic perhaps later on. And maybe on the podcast that might come out Friday. Now I'm just rambling. Cody O'Connor, let's flex on these people out here, because guess what? The Yankees look dead. The Yankees look shot, and the Mets are playing the best baseball they have all year, and that's saying something because they've been playing good ball for months. Cody O'Connor here to talk ball with me. What's up, brother?
Ooh, Pete, I don't know what this series says more about the Mets' current state, the Yankees' current state, but I did not think coming in that they were getting both of these games, that's for sure. I was hoping for a split, fearful that they'd drop both before the series with Atlanta. Especially coming out of the break and losing 2 of the first 3 to Miami before salvaging that series. But, man, it's 2 teams in going completely in opposite directions. 2 buyers at the deadline, I would say, is pretty much a guarantee. It's just the Mets are buying in a way that it's like, yeah, we're adding to what we have, but we've got this good mix and it's fun, and they're probably going to be light buyers. And the Yankees feel like they're about to be shopping hungry, if you will, going to the grocery store starving and just getting things that, like, just looking at every shelf, because it feels like they have a lot of question marks, especially through that lineup, like we know. But where are the answers? Is it Luis Robert? Is it Jesse Winker? Is it someone within, like when Giancarlo Stanton comes back and you say, hey, we're getting Stanton back in a week. In a week, we might add another bat, and this lineup could look differently. But it's certainly a lot more questions for answers for that team right now.
That was a bar, by the way, Cody. They're shopping hungry during this trade deadline. My goodness, I've never heard that analogy before in regards to a trade deadline. And that's a good one, because they must be starving right now. I know the Yankees fans are starving, Cody. That is easy money. Those guys are begging for some food on their plate right now, because Yankees fans are seeing what everyone's seeing. There's times when your team is not playing up to par, and some fans could be like, no, it's okay. There's that optimist, right? It's going to be okay. They're going to figure it out. And then there's always negative fans too, right? There's always both. There's always some sort of balance. I don't know a Yankee fan right now, and I know plenty. I don't know a Yankee fan right now who's beating the drum of positivity. I don't know a Yankee fan who's enjoying watching baseball right now. They're watching a team that looks uninspired, that looks soft, that looks like they don't care that they're not winning games and that they're not competing at a high level. Now, granted, this Wednesday night game was a blowout. Right, Wednesday was an abomination with all the home runs. What, the Mets have 5 home runs? Maybe Vientos, Tyrone Taylor, Alonso, and 2 for Lindor. That's math. That's 5 home runs.
Nice job, quick too.
So it's one of those things where, yeah, it got out of hand, right? And it shows a different story. They battled on Tuesday night. That's fair. Tuesday was a battle, a little bit. They didn't have like the most emphasis and conviction with all their play there, but it was a battle. They just didn't have firepower. So now you get beat and smacked up 4 games in a row to the Mets this season, which you don't see, Cody. You don't see a Subway Series go sweep any time ever. When the Yankees are great and the Mets suck, the Mets find a way to steal a couple. Sometimes they win those damn series for no reason, and the Mets fans get to say we did one good thing in a year. They got swept in the Subway Series. It means something, and it feels a certain type of way for Yankees fans.
It definitely does. I actually just saw Sean Marash tweet which I appreciated, and I hope Yankees fans will follow along with, where he's saying, don't leave that stadium talking your crap about this is the Mets World Series, or, you got one over us, but you're going to go back to your mediocre franchise, or any of that. They just got an ass whooping tonight. It's a 12-2 game. There's 2 outs in the ninth as we're recording, so I know we're kind of holding on to that, but they 10-run ruled them, for crying out loud. After last night, yeah, they did fight, I suppose, but I don't know how many times I'm texting in our group chats and the Mets are doing everything they can to throw this game away, to hand this over to the Yankees. They got a decent start from Quintana. He really did battle, and I thought maybe the best managed game from Mendoza on Tuesday night with how he managed the bullpen. Obviously, the approach to Judge and Soto, which is essentially, we're not really going to give you guys anything to look at because we'll deal with J.D. Davis in the 4-hole, which is a whole different conversation. But, it's just they're just asking. There's just a lot of questions and not a lot of answers, and for the Mets, it's the complete opposite. But they tried to hand away that Tuesday game. The Yankees just would not take it. And then the Mets came out and they got those hits with runners in scoring position, got the early home runs, and then completely flipped this game on its head. And here we are, 12-2, talking about a sweep and going into now the next biggest series of the year coming up at home against Atlanta with 4 straight against them.
Huge stuff, and we will definitely get deeper into the Mets. And obviously, since they just played, we always try not to put them side by side as much as possible, but it's too hard not to as New Yorkers, right? They're the 2 teams that we see the most by a long shot. I haven't sat down and watched a full baseball game this year without the Mets or the Yankees. Just call a spade a spade. In NBA,
me neither.
I watched a Pistons-Cavs game this year. In the MLB, I ain't watching the Guardians versus the Pirates. It just ain't happening, right? So I've watched, obviously, a ton of Mets, and I've watched a fair share of Yankees. So we can actually compare them. They just played. We just saw them head-to-head. And what I noticed, the biggest thing that was noticeable in the numbers before they played, and even more noticeable watching the game, you got 2 home runs out of Gleyber Torres. They were both solo. They didn't matter at all, Cody, because no consistency exists in this lineup for the New York Yankees. It's actually horrible. And the Mets have had lineups like this in the past, so I know what it's like as a fan. When you start hoping and praying for the guy who's batting 220 to save the day, it can happen. Anyone in the MLB can get a hit at any time. And most players, you feel like there's always a chance they could get into one and hit it out. You don't feel that with the Yankees. Do you have any nerves? I mean, yes, as a Mets fan, you have a nerve anytime a bullpen pitcher is in the game, just naturally. But you don't have a nerve about Austin Wells or DJ LeMahieu or anyone specific. You have a nerve about the Mets pitcher messing up, right? Like you said on that Tuesday game, them blowing it, not really the Yankees winning it. And there is such a difference when you see Vientos and even Tyrone Taylor just consistently making things happen. They're not even close as far as a balance. Soto had multiple hits today. Judge didn't do much today, but there's no trickle down effect at all in this lineup. And we knew it before, but seeing it head to head with these 2 teams made it even more obvious.
No, I think the best test for me, for Mets fans, the way I see it is how fearful I am of each batter in the lineup. Sometimes even them playing the Marlins, it's so stupid, but I'm like, oh, great. They're going from De La Cruz to Josh Bell, who kills this guy, to Jake Berger. He's swinging a great bat. And I'm fearful of almost every guy. And a lot of that is Mets bullpen related. But once you get past Judge, and we've been talking about this for far too long, but once you get past him, you really feel all right, I've got a really good chance to get this guy to ground into the double play, to keep the runner stranded at third with less than 2 outs. You feel no fear in that lineup. And that is a major, major issue. There is not that balance. There is not that, hey, the 7-hitter can do damage, like you said. There's no fear in the back of that lineup. Me going in and watching as a Mets fan, once I get through Judge, I think you have to get this guy out. You have to go after him. You certainly can't walk this guy. And that's 5 hitters in their lineup, which is a ridiculous thing to say. But it is how I felt in this series.
And even with Gleyber Torres hitting 2 home runs in this series, you know where he's been this year. So yeah, you get a little bit more of a nerve now. Like, oh, maybe he's heating up. Volpe has 2 hits the night prior. Maybe he's heating up, and it just didn't matter. But I want to go back to that idea of them shopping hungry. That's a great way to look at it. I really just love that you said that. Did you steal that from somebody, by the way, or is that something you've heard before?
I don't think I've made that up. I'm almost certain I haven't. I feel like I've heard it at different deadlines, but it's definitely a saying, shopping hungry is definitely a thing. And so for conversation purposes and for anyone listening, hopefully they haven't heard it anywhere. And let's think that it came straight from my brain because I like that. I like the credit.
I'm going to tell everyone I see tomorrow. My buddy came up with a great analogy yesterday. It's really, really cool. I'm just going to tell everyone I talk to tomorrow. But anyways, there's 2 sides to that phrase, though, when it comes to the New York Yankees. One is you make the mistake of going too far for the wrong guy, right? Mortgaging the wrong portion of your future, swinging for somebody who's not a game changer, whatever it may be on the far side of like you went too hard, right? That could be a negative. That's the idea of shopping hungry. On the other side of things, how hungry can Brian Cashman get? How hungry does Brian Cashman actually get? Or does the fact that JD Davis is hitting above 350 against lefties who throw a sweeper with a certain spin rate enough for Cashman to say he's putting the right lineup out there every day? And like I say that tongue in cheek, but apparently that's a real thing that happened as to why JD Davis batted 4th against Quintana on Tuesday night. They saw a specific number about how he hits against a certain type of left-hander who throws a certain type of pitch. So 4-hole, he hasn't hit all year. He's only played 9 games, but 4-hole in the big game that we need to bounce back from. So my other question is, I'm not convinced Cashman's going to be hungry. Like, I'm not convinced he's taking a swing. And to that I say, what a massive loss. This window is open, even with the lull, and a lull is really generous. Even with the lull the Yankees are in right now, they are 2 games behind Baltimore in the AL East. This division is winnable. Yep. This league is winnable. If you're not going for it right now with Juan Soto guaranteed to be here through this season right now, you are blowing an opportunity at a championship. And for years and years, I've sat on this podcast saying, Yankee fans, I don't get you. You're constantly in the ALCS and all you do is complain. If Brian Cashman doesn't make a move, all the Yankee fans who I got annoyed by complaining about Cashman for years and years and years will be justified. And I'll put my foot far in my mouth. Because if they don't go for it right now, Cody, that is a major bag fumble. And I will not even believe it. But at the same time, I can see Cashman not shopping hungry, which I guess at this point, you'd rather him shop hungry.
Yeah, it's because of the Juan Soto pressure. Like, that's the exact point you have to hit on with this, is that he's a 1-year rental that you traded for and gave up assets for with 0 ties to you and 0 guarantees that he comes back. He is your window. You're also in some ways almost auditioning for him. This whole season is like hey, we want you back and we're proving as to you why. Like, watching through June and as a Mets fan hoping for him next year, you're like, why the hell would he leave that to come to this? I mean, there's just no world in which he would want to leave that, even leave money on the table potentially for the Mets to stay with that group and that culture. And now all of a sudden, potentially that's different. So that's why their window, and they have to be aggressive. And you've been very consistent on your Cashman take where you're just kind of like, he's very comfortable. He does technically produce winner year after year, right? Which as Mets fans, we keep talking about how we'd starve for that. But it is different. This is a window to win a championship. And if you don't go and get somebody, at least one somebody, and I mean somebody who is coming in and making an impact, then I don't know where it comes from. Because we talked about this, I think it was the last Subway Series, if I'm not mistaken, when Stanton had just gone onto the injured list. And whenever it was, though, we mentioned it should not be such a big difference in the lineup, in the team, without just that guy who's very injury prone as is out of it. It should not look that different. You should not be so reliant on him coming back. And yet, here we are. And yet, yes, they are. So Cashman has to do something, work some magic. Maybe his job's not in danger. Maybe it never truly is. But the Yankees fans' expectations is still not the word, but his leash for them it's up. They're sick of him. I know that. I know they're sick of Boone. They're sick of seeing the same old thing. And so it's maybe become a bigger deadline now for the Yankees than it is even for the Mets.
100%. 100% a bigger deadline for the Yankees and the Mets. Because if the Mets make a minor move here, minor move there, you say, okay, there's not really a super specific place where you're guaranteeing an upgrade, right? Besides the bullpen where you just need more arms or, a back end rotation guy who's going to get some starts. I'm talking about the lineup. There's not like a super clear point where it's like, well, this guy we're going to get in a trade is definitely going to be better than who's there now. Like that's fair. With the Yankees, it's almost a guarantee that they're going to be better than what they have now. Like it's almost guaranteed. Cody, I don't know if you listened to the pod earlier in the week. I broke down the OPS totals for the top 7 offenses in baseball. And basically the crux of the argument was every other team in the top 7 has 7 or more players with an above average OPS. That's a 100 plus OPS plus. The Yankees had 4, and I miscalculated. I actually messed up the filter. So I filtered it by games and saw Jahmai Jones has an over 100 OPS plus. He only had 45 at bats. So I didn't even notice. They have 3 guys who were in my target range.
Yeah.
3.
And Ben Rice
Stanton's
is probably
hurt, so
right
it's
on the
2.
edge too, right? Yeah.
And Ben Rice. Yeah, so Ben Rice didn't meet my game. I filtered by games, right? Which I should have filtered by like an at-bat total.
I did listen,
so
by the way.
I filtered out Ben Rice. Oh, thank you, bro. Shout out. But I filtered out Ben Rice by games, but Jahmai Jones was in there for all the defensive replacements and pinch runnings or whatever. So they technically, with Stanton out, they got 2, man. They got 2.5. I'll give you Ben Rice. They got 2.5. The Dodgers got 8. The Orioles got 9. The Mets got 9. Phillies 7. Boston 7. Twins 7. What is happening?
9.
You can guarantee you trade for anybody who's decent, and they are now the 3rd best hitter on the Yankees.
Seriously.
Unbelievable.
They have, there's no protection for those guys. Like, and this is these parts on Boone, right? Because I'm just keeping the series in mind. But J.D. Davis batting 4th, we can bypass. We know that that's a ridiculous thing. Sometimes the Mets do it with DJ Stewart. We've talked about. I just, the numbers can say one thing, but I mean 4th, you want to bat him in the lineup, that's fine. But bat him 8th. Don't bat him 4. Anyway, Ben Rice being out of the lineup both nights, I get it. It's a lefty-lefty. It feels like the Mets were given a scapegoat there. Like I'm like, oh, phew, no Ben Rice tonight. Like that's one less guy in a lineup with so few guys, but it's one less guy that I have to worry about. I'm like, sure, you can play, Austin Wells playing tonight. I get it. It's, catcher, you can't play him both nights, but that was a different presence. That was a different feel after Judge. You did see some, good at-bats. He had a hit late at night. Got me actually a cash for my parlay last at-bat of the night, which made it 12-3, so they didn't 10-run rule him. But the whole point coming together is I don't understand all the Boone moves either. So when things are going wrong, everything gets questioned. I understand that. When you're not winning games, you look at every single little thing, and it feels like a lot of it can come, after the fact and in retrospect. But going in, it's the exact way I felt. And when your team's struggling, you really can't afford to also be making poor decisions. And from my angle, it looks like they've also made those poor decisions.
And then you come down to the guts factor, right? Like, it just looked like the Mets had bigger balls than the Yankees. Let's call it how it is. They had more guts, bigger balls, more pride. Like, this team seems like it has no pride right now. And I don't, like, people want to complain about Boone, and I'm fine. Get him out of here, right? Like, I don't think he's bringing anything to the table. Sure, let's move on from Aaron Boone. I'm fine with that, Yankees fans. Let's look at the mirror here. All these players got to step the hell up. When we're talking about professional athletes, it's not really the job of the manager to motivate them. It's not. Like, you can argue what the manager's job is. I think you saw it with what Mendoza had to decide against Aaron Judge in the 9th inning on Tuesday night. Like, those are the things that it comes down to for a manager, and like general vibes, I guess. But motivation, this team looks unmotivated. Like, Judge was going back on the McNeil second double and was kind of lollygagging back. And granted, like, you don't want to see Judge get hurt in a 10-run game. Absolutely, you don't want to see that. But at some point, you're the captain, you're the leader, and he's done more than enough to, hold up his end of the bargain. I'm not trying to crap on Judge here, but you got to find your leadership value too, right? Like people were crapping on Lindor early in the season. What do we say about Lindor? Even when he's in a slump, he shows up on defense. He shows up for 160 a year, and he plays hard no matter what, and that matters. End of
And
the
he
day,
and, he, and he's smiling, right? And he seems
yeah,
to be like in a good mood, which I think matters too. Yep.
and it's every sport too. It's not just like it's a baseball thing because it's such a long season. Like when Julius Randle seems like he's all pissed off, it seems like he's playing worse,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the fact that the Brunson, heart thing that like lifted up New York City and DiVincenzo, it lifted up that entire roster. Like Deuce McBride played better because of the vibes on that team, right? Like these things all absolutely matter. So it just feels like they're in an absolute rut. And that being said, they're still the top wild card. They're still 2 games out from Baltimore in the AL East, and they are okay in the big picture, but in the picture of that lineup, that rotation, that bullpen, absolute every worry that a Yankees fan has is valid right now.
100%. I think we've hit most of it. It's the downward spiral, but it's because they built that cushion. They still have more than life, so we'll see what they can do at the deadline. But and as much as it's fun for the bragging rights, right, to sweep them 4-0, this series is a nice 2-game set. Like I said before, what's coming forward for the Mets? 4 games with Atlanta. Atlanta, who's reeling, injured, ripe for the taking, it seems. If there's ever a year to actually go and get something from Atlanta, it seems like it's right now with the way the Mets are playing compared to the way the Braves are playing. I think they're within a game and a half, 2 games right now in the wild card for that top spot. But right below them is also a ton of teams fighting. So there is no like breathing room here. The Reds are playing good ball. The Pirates have been playing good ball. The Cardinals keep playing good ball. The Padres keep playing good ball. So every series is going to matter, but especially any one against those 4 or 5 teams. And it's just even a little added extra when it's the Atlanta Braves at home, to which I am going Friday night to Senga's return, actually. So I'm pumped for that.
Ooh, shout out. That's exciting. Very good for you for that one. And as of right now, the Yankees are a game and a half behind Baltimore. The Mets are a game and a half behind Atlanta. So we're in here right now. And one last thing before we fully move to the Mets here, Cody. As a Mets fan, a little bit anticlimactic for me with this sweep completion here against the Yankees because it feels like Yankee fans are like waving a white towel at the moment. Like it feels like they're basically their defense has been like, yeah, we suck right now. Who cares? Like I got multiple texts. We're on to football season already, which is it is what it is. But that's like some of the vibes I'm getting from certain Yankee fans. Now those aren't the biggest Yankee fans around town, but it's usually fun when you get this win. You're like, I got you. The Mets are here. Blah blah blah. And I didn't get that satisfaction here after these 2 games. Did you get that satisfaction at all?
I definitely don't. Like, I don't even do any bragging over Yankees fans because I'm one of the fans that I'm like, yeah, your organization's really just far superior to the mine. Like, thanks for letting me be happy for these couple nights and you be on your way and I'll be on mine. So I usually don't do much, but it's Yankees fans who are more or less just starting it and just being exactly like that, just so defeated and down on this team. I wasn't even watching or I don't want to watch. And I mean, to some extent, I do understand it, but it didn't feel anyway like there was excitement around this Subway Series, and well, 12-3 kind of shows that. So it's hard to get too excited over that as a Yankees fan, I guess.
And shout out to my grandpa John, R.I.P., and my aunt Nadine who texted me during tonight's game. Since I'm a little kid, they've said this sentiment to me. It's hard to be a Mets fan, and it's easy to be a Yankees fan. You got to fight as a Mets fan. And that's how I feel right now. I feel like that's coming to fruition right here in the year 2024. Hopefully it continues, and we'll talk more about the Mets. Last thing, prediction, Cody. You don't have to give me a specific player. You don't have to give me a specific trade. Do the Yankees complete the swing for this trade deadline? Do they get the shopping done that they need to get done for this trade deadline?
They bring in a bat, and if I did narrow it down, I would have it between Luis Robert and Jesse Winker. And I would guess that well, It would make more sense for it to be Robert because they struggle so much against left-handed pitching, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was Winker. And they're like, yeah, hey, like here's Jesse Winker. He's having a nice year with the Nationals, but he's coming off like a horrible year, and he's usually not that good unless he's playing the Mets. But
Yeah, he's great
here
against
you
the
go.
Mets.
Here's Jesse Winker.
They needed
So
him this
I would
week.
love him, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Winker would also instantly just bat fourth for them. Hondo P. With the lefty, righty, lefty, he'd be slotted right into the cleanup spot for them. I kind of agree. I think it won't be a splash factor, but it will be enough to say, okay, we added a bat and a half to this lineup rotation situation, and we're ready to roll, and Stan's coming back, and Volpe's playing better, and here we are, and we're back, and there'll be a playoff team. All right, New York Yankees. Let's move on to a team that's a lot more fun to talk about at the moment. We'll talk about the New York Mets right here on Subway Sports Talk with Pete Kennedy and Cody O'Connor. Podcast app. You know what to do. Subscribe, rate, review. Social media at Subway Sports Talk. Put out a nice TikTok and reel about the Yankees cleanup spot. Precisely. Exactly what we talked about. The worst cleanup spot in baseball with a 586 OPS, which is just horrendous. Like just really, really bad. The cleanup spot for the Mets, however, hasn't been a world beater, but it's getting better, and Pete Alonso's swinging a good bat right now in the last couple days. So is Jeff McNeil. And Cody, the New York Mets, a game and a half behind the Braves, creeping up in that wild card spot. Obviously, the Phillies are still ways away. They're 10-plus games above the New York Mets, but we're at a point now where it's not just a grimace streak. It's not just a gimmicky, oh my God, streak for the New York Mets. The Mets have been playing very good baseball since about May 30th, June 1st, if you will, to make it a clean one. They've been playing good ball for nearly 2 full months here, Cody. And I just want to ask you an overarching question before we get into specifics. At this point in time, a week out from the deadline, what is your new expectation? You had your expectation before the season. What is your new expectation for the remainder of this season and beyond into a postseason run?
Yeah, it's almost like your golf handicap, like what I'm expecting versus what would make me happy. Like I'm expecting that they're in the race down the stretch and playing through September, very meaningful, important baseball games. And I am hoping that they are one of the 3 wildcard teams. But as well as they've been playing, again, there is still a lot of traction right around that just above 500 mark. So they've got to continue to play that great baseball. And we know how long the season is. August is a long month, So my hope is, and my expectation is, that they are an 86 or so win team, and they are the second or third wild card. That's what I believe that they can do. And so hopefully they just make some of those moves at the deadline to shore things up and be able to do it.
So if you take out the Braves, who are a game and a half up on the Mets right now, you have 5 teams, including the Mets, within a game of the third wild card spot. So the Mets are a half game up on the third spot. The Cardinals and Padres are in a percentage tie for the third spot. And then you got the Diamondbacks and Pirates hanging around 2 games above 500. And that's barring if anyone's still playing. I'm not sure if any of the games are still going on right now. But 5 teams, if you count the Braves, 6 teams very much in it. The Reds playing decent ball. They're only 4 games out of that third spot. So like you said, there's tons of time to blow this. There's tons of time for a lull to come back into play here. But I agree. I think it feels like at this point in time, the way they're playing for 2 months, there has to be the expectation to be a wild card team. If they don't end up being a wild card team, I think we can say with confidence that would be a disappointing season.
Yep.
2 months ago, even a month ago, if they were not a wild card team, but they were fighting, playing meaningful games, we would have said, okay, listen, it was never the year. They fought, they battled, they made it interesting. They didn't get there, but they've officially passed that threshold. They have the expectation of a playoff team now. And now we come back to this lineup. So obviously Lindor has been otherworldly since he's entered that leadoff spot. He's officially a 2020 guy. We know what Nimmo's done. JD Martinez had a little lull, but he seems fine. Pete Alonso getting going here because he was the only guy playing well early. And now in this streak of good baseball, he hasn't been that special. So, Cody, are you seeing anything from Pete Alonso And if, say, he does get back to more of his standard, what do you think that does to this team?
Well, if he's like the true power bat, incredible threat, Pete Alonso that he's been throughout his career, it's nothing crazy to say. Every single season that they've had a full season that he's been in, he's hit like 36, I think, plus home runs, and so it's nothing crazy to say that he can go on a streak and hit 15 home runs through the rest of the season. But the one thing I'm encouraged a little bit by is that I feel like he's seeing the ball a little bit better, not chasing as much, and being able to select his pitches and barrel them up a little bit better. They've been mentioning it the last two nights. I thought was interesting how much he seems to be moving. How like they talk about quiet hands a lot, right? Like just kind of having like everything all together in one simple motion and just smooth, right? And how it's kind of been like a little bit more noise essentially at the plate. And they mentioned it both nights, and I thought it was actually pretty interesting. Francoeur said something about how much his head seems to be moving on his stride. And so when your head's dropping and your eye level's dropping that much as a 95 mile per hour fastball or an 83 mile per hour, off speed pitch comes in, it's going to make your life that much more difficult. So it seems like there's some small mechanical fix to hopefully get real full Pete Alonso back. And it starts with just being able to see the ball like he has. So, it feels like not any contribution, because that would be a lot to say, right? He's not like he's been horrible. He's still got like a 780-ish OPS. But to what we can see and what we can expect, we certainly still are not at that level. And what a hell of a plus that threat would be, mixed in with guys like Vientos and JD, who really, like you said, hasn't been amazing right in this stretch either. There's no saying what this lineup could do. But then again, obviously other guys can cool off too. So you know how it goes. There's ebbs and flows. The sport is nuts. It's a roller coaster, and there's so many games. But yeah, if you get something from Pete going forward, something close to that level, that'd be massive.
And the other guy who seems to have turned some sort of corner, and we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but Happy Jeff McNeil is swinging the best bat that he's swung all year. And it's been 7 games now, or 6 games now, right? Since the All-Star break, 6 games. And he's been the best hitter on the team. Probably besides Lindor.
Yep.
Lindor's still been ridiculous, but McNeil's been the second best hitter on the Mets for 6 games now. Is this legit? Or are we seeing a version of Jeff McNeil that we've seen in the past? Are we going to be happy with Happy Jeff for an extended period of time, or is this a little bit of a flash in the pan?
I want to be so bad, and I'm afraid of getting hurt, so I don't want to go so far, because I always have loved Jeff. Like, I loved him since the start when everyone was on Alonso. Like, I'm like, yeah, Alonso's great, but this guy's hitting 320, and he's playing 3 positions, and all of them so well, which he has continued to do even when the hitting hasn't been there. He is still playing multiple positions really well. Had an awesome series against Miami, a specific game against Brian De La Cruz, even specifically in right field. But Jeff with the bat, it's something that they said he talked with Murphy, and he's just like, I'm just trying to hit the ball hard where it's pitched now. I'm not thinking about dinking and dunking it. And if you do think about what McNeil had looked like, it was a lot of off-balance swings. It was a lot of getting under pitches. And when he's balanced and he's got it right, there's still some pop there, which I don't always love the pop. I love line drive Jeff. But when he's hitting line drive home runs the way he's been, there ain't nothing wrong with that swing. And I do still have the belief that, at least to some level, that we can get that Jeff McNeil back. And again, what an addition that would be to this lineup to extend it and have him. They had Alvarez batting 8th today, and I think rightfully so. I think Mendoza's been excellent with placing guys who are hitting better in better spots. And he did it again with Jeff. He's been moving him up the lineup, and again, rightfully so.
Such a weird thing with Jeff McNeil that a couple of years ago when he had that first power surge and hit a bunch of home runs, it felt like he got home run happy, right? And he wasn't hitting line drives all over the field. He wasn't getting dink and dunks. It looked like he's like, wow, I can hit home runs now. Let me swing for the fence a little bit. And that ruined him. And then he had a whole year of sucking. So he was like, well, maybe let me get back to just dinking and dunking, hitting line drives again. And that ruined him again. So he like ruined himself twice in 2 different ways. And now for the first time this season, like not hyperbolic, like for the first time this season, he put together like back-to-back good series. It's crazy. He hasn't done that all year. And maybe that whole journey of like power happy to trash, dink dunk happy to trash, and now maybe he found that happy medium. And that's something that would be just incredible for this lineup. And like you said, whether he's batting eighth, ninth, or now fifth, sixth, seven, whatever it is, that dynamic is enormous. And I actually I've seen him look for walks, which is another thing that like we're not used to seeing Jeff McNeil do. Like he's always been a guy willing to swing at the first pitch. He's aggressive up there. He's trying to hack and he's trying to like take pitches, and he just seems more balanced, which is a word you used for him. And that's the thing that I think he needs. And again, that addition would be enormous. Now on to Francisco Alvarez. He seems to be in a little bit of a lull in this past couple games here. Swings getting long. They pointed that out on the broadcast yesterday. Getting frustrated with the umpires.
He was
worry
right for that
on
last one
Alvarez
today.
or
no,
very right for that last one. But any worry there?
I think he's kind of a streaky guy, at least to what we've seen so far. Similar to Lindor, and even to what I said about McNeil, even though it's to a less different extent because of the joy, but Alvarez never brings that out to behind the plate. And we always have to remember that at the first and foremost, what his job is to manage the starting staff and bullpen and be an awesome defensive catcher and get the best out of his guys, instill the confidence. And he does that. I mean, like, unlike any Mets catcher I can ever truly remember, with like just the way the timing he has of going out to the mound and all that. So I never have the real fear with Alvarez, at least not to this point in his short career with the Mets. But I do think that at some point he'll get it going. And I still believe that he's one of those guys that lives for the big moment. And I think as the moments get bigger, he will too. So if I'm wrong about that, so be it. But that's what I think about him.
And lastly, on Lindor here, then I have a Senga question to get to you. On Lindor here, we've reached a point of Francisco Lindor. This is probably peak Lindor so far as a New York Met. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think 2022 he had 100 RBI, 30 homer season. So like, I think the point is more to keep saying just how damn good this guy has been. But this stretch over 2 months is MVP levels Lindor. So yes, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and right, the full season that he had was better than what he's done to this point. But this stretch has definitely been the most incredible. And he's hitting with power from both sides. He's hitting for average. He's stealing bags. He's still playing an incredible shortstop. What do we even have to say about this man right now? I mean, there's been question marks about how much he gets paid. There's been question marks about how he ranks against shortstops across the MLB. And I feel like we sit here today, Cody, and we say he's exactly who we were billed out to get. And it just took some time. There were some ups. There were some downs. There were some ups. But this up is truly legitimate, and he is playing at a top tier level for the past 2 months.
He's the center of this comeback. He is the center, along with, say, Brandon Nimmo, of saving this season and making them into buyers at the deadline. He is the core of that. So for all the people who have said, oh, he puts up pointless stats or empty stats, 30-30 season, but he didn't get it going until they were already out of the race. And then they even started that this year, right, as he started to get it going in May. Well, now look at him, and now he's finally coming along as they're 10 games below 500. And in the biggest moments, he's been stepping up and proving himself to be one heck of a Subway Series player. I think that's like maybe 5 home runs in the Subway Series at least that I can think of, because he had a 3 home run game against them a couple years back. So he's been unbelievable in every single facet. Love the move by Mendoza to put him back at leadoff, where he seems comfortable and he just feels like he's so selective now. He's not chasing. He doesn't feel like in the 3 hole, maybe he's thinking, I've got to drive runs in. And at the 1 hole, he's just like, I might get on with a walk, which he's been doing a lot more. And if you throw me a pitch over the plate, I'm recognizing it, barreling it, and I'm doing damage with it. I mean, he's not just hitting the ball. He's hitting with power. He's driving it everywhere. You've already mentioned shortstop. This 2-month stretch, which I think the Mets are now 29-13, and if I'm not mistaken, in that stretch, it's about 2 months, he is the best player in baseball. I think he's been at least in the National League, he's been the best player over that stretch. Obviously, before that stretch, he was one of the worst. So that's why he's not likely to be in the real MVP conversation. But I mean, what a couple months this has been for him.
And to put some numbers to those points that you just made there, as the first batter of a game, right, just leading off the game, he is slashing 362, 474, 596. That has him at a 1,069 OPS, and he's only got one home run leading off the game, but he has 8 doubles, 17 hits, and that's in, you know, however many games it's 57 plate appearances, 47 at bats. So he also has 10 walks in that regard too. So he's just killing it. And since he's moved to the leadoff spot, he's batting 300, 386 on base with a 923 OPS. So basically, since he moved to that spot, which is about that point you just mentioned, he is OPS over 900, which would put him, top 20 in the league, top 15 in the league. So it's just been ridiculous. But all right.
And stealing bases and the defense. The steals have been unreal too, though.
And that's another thing with the Yankees, man. They don't got anyone getting bags. Yeah. He's been super consistent on that front as well.
Yep.
Good point. So now, Christian Scott is going to be out for a couple weeks here. Not that he's been incredible, but another starting pitching arm is done for now. But Kodia Senga makes his return on Friday. What are your expectations for the second-year MLB pro? Coming off the injury, coming off a really good year last year, and the Mets sneaky looking at him, saying, if you can become the guy you were in the second half last year, we are looking at a truly legit contender.
Well, yeah, it's the addition at the deadline just based on an injury, which is same as 2022 with DeGrom. I will be actually in attendance for that game Friday night against the Braves. I don't know if you caught that when we cut out before, but we happened to get the tickets beforehand. It was flirting around that he might be back for that series, and it happens to be that night. So that's super cool. Very excited to see him. You got to expect some rust and some struggles. I mean, similar to what we said about Diaz coming into this season, and certainly he's had his, but the hope is just that he can remain healthy, because when he is, his stuff is nasty. It will play. He will be able to find it. He did have a tougher start in his last rehab start, but more importantly, he threw, I think, 85 or so pitches and came out of it healthy. So give me a healthy Kodia Senga, a true-ish ace at the top. He's probably a number 2 on, great pitching teams, but what a big addition, a stopper, if you will, an ace, hopefully, and give him a little bit of time, Mets fans, and it's a huge addition to a team that is rolling currently, and not that the rich get richer again. They're not in some type of a 5-game lead or anything like that. It's still grit and grind. It's still in the mud. It's dog days of summer, but it's a huge addition to get Senga back, no doubt.
Looking at the balance of power for that rotation just changes if he could be good, right? Because we're looking at Severino, who's been the best pitcher for the Mets this year. Then you got Quintana and McNeil, who seem to just battle day in, day out when they're out there, whether they go 5 tough innings or maybe they go 7 or 8, not 8, but you know what I mean? A little bit deeper in the game with a couple runs given up, but they fight through. They've been consistent enough to say, hey, they're keeping us in games. They're giving us chances. Adding Senga to that mix is going to create a balance where you look at a tough series against the Braves, against the Phillies, against the Dodgers, and you go, oh, we got Senga, Sevy, Quintana. I like where we're at. I like where we're at with that. So if Senga and Severino could be a 1-2 punch with those other guys, kind of, and Peterson, who's been very good, we're looking at a full-fledged rotation for the first time this year as well. But yeah, any last words on the New York Mets here, Code, before we do our final topic?
Nope. Like I said last time, just super fun to keep watching them. Always nervous when the bullpen comes in. Only tonight's lead was one that I actually felt comfortable with, which was a 10-run lead in the 8th. And I was like, all right, I think I can actually breathe and walk the dog maybe in between. But just been so fun to watch. So I hope they keep it going. The lineup's been fun. The energy's been electric. And oh my God, here we are.
Here we are. Oh my God. New York Mets, New York Yankees talk in the books. Subway Sports Talk, Pete Kennedy, Cody O'Connor. Thank you all for listening so much. Podcast app, you know what to do. Subscribe, rate, review, drop a comment, follow us on social media at Subway Sports Talk. Listen on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. on RadioGardenState.com on their new 24/7 live radio station, RadioGardenState.com. But for Cody O'Connor, I'm Pete Kennedy. We'll be back to talk more baseball, more USA hoops, and football around the corner. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you soon. Cheers.